Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a skill that is, and I mean this, absolutely essential for understanding the world on a deeper level. We're talking about making sharp inferences and drawing solid conclusions. This is how you go from just, reading the words to actually understanding the story.
So let me ask you something. Think about the last thing you read. Were you just kind of scanning the words on the page, or did you really see the full picture? Because let's be honest, a lot of the time, the most important stuff is what's left unsaid.
So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with learning how to read between the lines. Then, we'll get into the art of inference, and after that, the power of a really strong conclusion. We'll even put them side by side to see the big difference. And finally, we'll wrap up with why this whole thing matters way beyond just reading a book.
All right, first up, let's talk about what it means to go beyond the page. You see, the best readers, they don't just see the words that are written down. No, they're actively digging into the text to pull out all that deeper, unspoken meaning.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? What's written is just the tip of the iceberg. The real meaning, the subtext, well, that's hidden in all the little hints and clues the author leaves for you to find. So let's figure out how to spot what's hiding in plain sight.
Okay, let's grab our first tool from the toolkit, inference. Honestly, the best way to think about this is like you're playing detective. It's all about finding those little clues in the text and piecing them together to solve a mini mystery.
So, what exactly is an inference? Well, think of it as a smart, educated guess. This is not some wild shot in the dark. It's a logical jump you make by mixing two key ingredients: the clues you find right there in the text and everything you already know about how the world works.
And you know what? You use this detective skill all the time, maybe without even realizing it. You use it to figure out what a friend really means when they just say, "I'm fine." You use it to spot the weak spot in an argument, predict what's going to happen next in a movie, or even make a big decision based on some data you're looking at.
Now, every good detective has a method, and here's ours. It's a simple four-step process. First, you gather your evidence. Those are the explicit details. Then you check in with your own expertise. That's your prior knowledge. Next, you look for patterns in the evidence. And finally, you test your theory to make sure it actually makes sense.
Okay, time to put on our detective hats. Let's look at this case file. We've got a clinic, it's winter, way more people are visiting, they're all bundled up in thick coats, and they're coughing. So based just on these clues, what can you infer is going on here?
Let's break it down with our 4 steps. The explicit details, more visits, winter coats, coughing, check. Our prior knowledge, well, we all know winter is prime time for colds and the flu. The pattern, everything is pointing towards some kind of sickness. So our inference is, the clinic is swamped because of a seasonal illness. It fits all the facts, case closed.
Okay, that was great detective work. Now let's see how that builds to our next skill. If making an inference is like playing the detective, then drawing a conclusion, that's like being the judge. It's about looking at all the evidence, the whole case, to deliver a final, overarching verdict.
The key word here is judgment. A conclusion isn't just based on a few clues here and there. Nope. It's a much bigger, more final statement that wraps up the entire meaning of a text after you've weighed all the information together.
And just like a judge follows a strict procedure, so should you. First, gather all the relevant evidence you can find. Second, find the logical connections between all those pieces of evidence. Third, and this one's a big one, think about the author's purpose. Why did they write this? And finally, you form a conclusion that is based purely on the facts you've gathered.
All right, let's take this next case to the courtroom. The evidence states that a huge demand for seafood has led to more fishing. This is great for coastal towns. It's creating jobs. But at the same time, it's raising some pretty serious alarms about overfishing. So looking at both sides, what's the final verdict here? What's the overall conclusion? So here, the judge has to weigh everything. On one hand, you have the economic boom for these communities. On the other, the serious environmental concerns. The author is clearly showing us both sides, how one single thing, more demand, is having two huge and conflicting effects. The only fact-based conclusion is that the rise in seafood demand is creating both a positive economic impact and a serious negative environmental one.
And now for the main event. We've got our detective and we've got our judge. Let's put them side by side, because I want the difference between making an inference and drawing a conclusion to be absolutely crystal clear.
So here's the bottom line. An inference is our detective connecting a couple of dots, like coughing plus winter equals sickness. It's an educated guess based on clues.
A conclusion, though, that's the judge looking at the entire case file, the economy, the environment, all of it, to issue a final verdict on what the whole big picture means. One is a clue-based theory, the other is an evidence-based judgment.
So why have we spent all this time with detectives and judges? You might be wondering, what does this have to do with my actual life? Well, it turns out these aren't just skills for reading a text. They are powerhouse tools for navigating the real world.
Seriously, think about it. This is your new critical thinking toolkit. It's what helps you read past a clickbait headline and understand the real story. It lets you infer where the market might be going before you make an investment. You can hear what's not being said in a tense meeting. You can evaluate complex arguments. Really, you can become a much more informed and aware person.
And that's really what this all boils down to. What you've learned here today, these aren't just reading skills. They are fundamental thinking skills. They give you a major upgrade in your ability to analyze, to understand, and to think critically about everything around you.
So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you has the tools of both the detective and the judge, what hidden meanings, what unspoken truths, what kind of subtext are you going to find out in the world today?